Today, I'm sharing another edition of the Fix My Room series, where I take questions from a homeowner or a renter about their space. They send in photos and we go over them together. Today's overarching dilemma comes from Kayla, and it's what to do with a big open space between the staircase and the living area. It's too wide to be a hallway, but in some ways, it still is a hallway because you have to walk through it to get to the kitchen or the living area. I encourage you to watch this episode on our YouTube channel. Just search for Slow Style Home. But in case you're just listening, let me give you a quick sketch of the floor plan. So you walk through the front door and you're in a nice sized vestibule that feels distinct from the rest of the house, although you can see straight through across one end of the big open space, and straight ahead it is an office. Then you step out of the vestibule and there's a staircase on your left, and you're now in that big open space that we're going to be talking about. And as you turn left, you'll see the kitchen at the other end of the big open space with the living room on the right side. Now, there isn't a wall between the open space and the living room, but there is a wooden post halfway down the room, sort of making it visually obvious where the living room starts. And one more thing. If you want to be featured on the podcast in the Fix My Room series, just send me an email with your questions and photos of your room, and we'll have a conversation. You can find me at zandra@slowstylehome.com. Okay, let me introduce you to Kayla's home. Kayla, welcome to the Slow Style Home podcast. I am really excited to talk about your project today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into it. Let me share some photos that you shared with me. We're going to start with this one, I think. Is this your front door?
That is our entryway, yes.
Kayla, you live on Vancouver Island, which I know is beautiful because I've been there. This is your front entryway, and that's the space we're going to be talking about. Before I go through the photos, tell us a little bit about what you're struggling with.
So we live in this post and beam home, and because it's built the way it's built, we have very big, wide open spaces in the house. The house has sort of two additions here. So the entryway was an addition, and the room that we're kind of standing in the photo is an addition.
Hi.
And it leads into this large foyer space that goes towards our kitchen, living room, dining room.
Okay.
And it's just this big empty open space in the middle of the house that also uses a passageway kind of coming in and out and to all our other living spaces. So
Right.
right now it's a pretty dead open area.
Yeah.
And we have two young kids, so they tend to use it as a runway and ball throwing area.
Yep.
There's lots of slipping and sliding happening. So
Right.
yeah, just looking for sort of some advice and ideas on what to do with a space that kind of requires open passage as well as like
Yes.
functionality.
Right. All right. Let's start looking through a couple of other photos. So I've just walked into the house, and if I'm looking straight ahead, is this what I'm looking at?
This is, yeah.
Okay.
So this is walking in from the front door. At the far end is my little office space.
Okay.
And if you take a left, there's stairs up to the living bedroom areas.
Right.
And
Here.
just past the stairs kind of enters into the main living space. And
Right. So this is the first part of the area we're going to be talking about, but it's pretty big. So it's going to go that way to the left as well. Let's see if we can get another photo of that. So now you really see how big this space is. And straight ahead is the kitchen. Is that right?
correct. Yeah.
And then to the right of that, you see the living area.
Yeah. So
Okay, great.
living room and dining room in the back.
Okay, great. And here we are kind of standing in the living room, but now looking into that big entryway space.
Correct.
I can see why your kids use it as a runway. It's a fabulous open space for kids. But you clearly need to keep some of it open, as you say, for a pathway into these other rooms. But it is a shame to waste this space on emptiness, especially if you could use the room for some other purpose. Tell us a little bit about what's going on this wall here? There are a lot of guitars, and it looks like a record player and a buffet stand. And so, who's the musician in the family?
That would be my husband.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are his guitars. And you're right, it's a record player and our record storage is in the cabinet and then the two speakers on the side. So he spends a lot of time, like his free time, playing guitar. So he
Uh-huh.
finds himself standing in that open space a lot.
Okay.
It's fine. Um,
Like a wandering minstrel.
yeah. Or sitting on the edge of the couch because
Yeah.
it's not comfortable to sit in a chair with arms.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks phenomenal. I mean, what a fantastic use of that wall. It's not only got all these cool shapes to look at, it's very personal. I think that's wonderful. What else do you imagine or would you like to use this space for?
Well, at some point, me and my husband had spoken of putting like a bench in front of the front window.
Right
Mm.
here?
Yeah, in the front window, we have a pond in the front yard,
Oh, pretty.
so it's just a really nice aesthetic point to look at.
Yes.
But his thoughts were that it's being where it is, it wouldn't be functional. It might be too narrow,
You mean not wide enough here?
not wide enough there, and
Uh,
yeah, so we're kind of indecisive
Okay.
there. Um,
Okay. Or do you have any other thoughts about what you might like to do in the space or how you might like to use it?
It would be nice, like, our arrangement of seating in the living room isn't
Mhm.
ideal. That couch was
Okay.
inherited to us by my in-laws. It was too big for their new home, so we kind of took it over. So we are interested in maybe doing something different for a seating arrangement in the living room. And
Okay.
we do find when we have company, like, we have a big home, so we host a lot of the
Yeah.
holiday dinners and birthdays because 'cause we're the only siblings with kids.
Oh, well, okay. You're right. I was in that position too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, having spillover space would be nice. People tend to kind of hover around the big island in the kitchen and then spill out into the foyer if they don't want to be sitting
Yeah.
in the living room.
Yeah.
So
So what is in the living room? I mean, in this photo, I see the big couch, and then beyond that is like a little eat-in dining area. And then is there any other seating in this room that I just don't see in this photo?
no, there's a fireplace that has the baby cage around it.
Here.
And then
Yep.
on the other side of that, I just have a small wooden table with a bench and a chair for my kids that they
Hold
sit
on.
at to do crafts. And
Okay.
I don't think I had a photo of that in there. It's
So
kind
I
of tucked
see
into the corner
over here, like beyond the fireplace.
on the side of the fireplace. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. And just for those of you who maybe are listening and not watching on YouTube, the couch is facing these big open, well, there's a lot of windows on this wall, but there's also big French doors that go outside, and they
Mhm.
have a large area rug, and they have a coffee table, all part of the living area around the couch. So spillover for guests. Let me go back to this window idea right here.
Mhm.
Where the front door is there any storage or anything there when you first walk in for coats or shoes or anything like that?
So on the left, when you're looking at the door, on the
Mm.
left, we have a bench with a
Mhm.
shelf underneath,
Mhm.
and there's a big window on that wall, so we don't
Yep.
have space for hooks or anything. And on
Okay.
the other side, we have an antique kind of armoire
I
that
see.
opens, and we can hang coats and put shoes in.
Great. And do you feel you have enough storage right now?
Uh, we do. I'd probably add like maybe a couple more hooks or something for people when they
Okay.
walk in.
Right. Okay. But it's not like storage is the issue here.
No, we have a mud room that goes into our laundry room, which we
Yeah.
use as a family to come in and out.
Got it. So this is an entryway for
It's a
guests,
formal
which
yeah.
it's I mean, it's so nice to have one of those, I think, especially anywhere where it's rainy or snowy, because you do track stuff in and people do have coats and they do have shoes and all that kind of stuff. So, and
Mhm.
also I just think it's nice to come in a beautiful entryway, and this one looks quite lovely. Um, so I just think your instinct to take advantage of this view out to the pond is a really good one. How wide is this wall where those windows are?
It's quite wide. It's probably 20 feet across.
Okay. And he was worried it would have to be no wider than this part of the wall right here where that is
The
framing the
trim.
door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think because it's so wide, I'm not sure I would worry about a bench or even like a chaise lounge would be a wonderful little spot right here. And I don't think it would matter if it sticks out a bit because you have so much room with the width of this wall to walk around it.
Okay.
So I would reconsider that idea and not worry too much that it would be too long, especially if something like a chaise lounge was not, it wouldn't go all the way to this wall.
No.
It doesn't even have to go to all the way to the end of this window. It could be on sort of the left side of the window primarily with maybe like a little like a floor lamp where you've got this chair right now to just
Mhm.
make this a little moment. I mean, I can see it could even be a moment for you to sit while your kids are playing right near you.
Mm.
And you would even maybe way over here have a room for a little tiny like a martini table. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
To put your coffee down or your wine down or whatever it is you're drinking. I just feel like this view does seem really awesome, but that wouldn't take up much of the space. So let's talk about the rest of the space. What about the idea of having seating that backs up to the couch here, that's facing this wall,
Mhm.
facing
I've
the
kind of
wall where the guitars are? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've thought about that because I'd seen on one of your other episodes, you talked about doing couches back to back,
Yeah.
and I'd
This
never.
one would have no arms
Mhm.
because so it would feel more like an upholstered bench with a back
Okay.
so that your husband can play there, or it could be slipper chairs, a couple like one or two slipper chairs. Maybe
Mhm.
that would even be better. One or two slipper chairs backing up to the couch with a little table in between, again, so that when people are there's spillover, it's a natural place for people to kind of go to sit, just two people and have a like an intimate conversation with a little drinks table in between them.
Mhm.
Um, you could also put a small armchair here, although it might be a little bit wide for someone sitting in an armchair here to be talking across to these two people in the two slipper chairs. That might be a little bit too wide, but I can see people in a party pulling this chair over
Mhm.
and sitting here, right?
Right.
Because the space is wide, I think you want to have the ability to move furniture around. So maybe these chairs are either very lightweight, they could be on casters, but probably just lightweight is good enough.
Right.
And then I would have a nice area rug here that might, I mean, at least if you had an area rug, the kids wouldn't be wearing roller skates. Here, yeah, I'm not saying they do, but you could probably see that in the future. But at least a little carpet here would slow them down. Actually, it
Mhm.
wouldn't be a little carpet. It would be a fairly large carpet.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did wanna ask you, we do have a large rug that would go from the end of the record player
yeah.
to almost the front window,
Okay.
but the colors are kind of a dusty pink and,
Okay.
like, lighter teals,
Okay.
but I'm not sure doing a rug that large there would it might make that space too prominent.
Well, I'm thinking that you might want to divide the space more into this area
Mhm.
here where potentially you'll put a bench or like a chaise lounge or something.
Right.
So if I were you, I would put that big rug here, move
Mm.
it closer to the kitchen
Okay.
so that this area is defined as the spillover area for large gatherings, which is a little bit separate from this more private
Seating
area
area.
right here. Now, if you didn't want to get a bench, you could do chairs here too. And you already have one chair here. So the outfitting this area might not be your priority. And again, we haven't talked budget or anything, but I mean, most people do have to do things over time, and you might not be able to do things all at once. So I would make this area the priority over this one.
Okay.
And because you already do have a chair there, so you are kind of taking advantage of that a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but it just sounds like, especially with the kids and stuff, it would be nice to sort of start saying, "Hey, this is a room too," not just a runway.
Mhm.
Would that larger rug that you have, would that fit in this area that takes you from basically the stairway to, or part of the stairway to the kitchen?
Yeah, it would probably go from the fireplace wall to the kitchen tile.
Oh,
Yeah.
from over here down here. Okay, so it would cover this whole area.
Yeah.
Well, that's fabulous. I mean, most people have trouble because they don't have, the rugs aren't big enough. That sounds like a really
Right.
nice sized rug. Again, I think chairs might be a more practical solution than a couch, but if you kept those there, it looks like you'd still have plenty of egress into the living room around here and even through here. Because
Yeah.
even if you did get a couch, it wouldn't be this wide.
No, that couch is very long, so
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think of this so far?
they're all ideas I haven't really thought of, so
Okay, okay. And remember, we're keeping the scale of the chairs small. A slipper chair that has no arms, a bench or a divan that obviously has no arms. There would be plenty of room to walk around these pieces of furniture, but it also, without arms, it also signals to people kind of psychologically that it's not cramped, that
yes.
movement to walk around. Although a chair like that you already have, because it's not fully upholstered, it's still showing its frame, its wooden frame. That has a nice airiness to it too. So I guess what I'm saying is keeping that word in mind, airiness, that you don't want it to feel like the room is closing in on you because it does need to be a passageway.
Right.
And then I would think about this wall here. Is there something you can think about doing? Because in addition to the guitars, that's now going to be a focal point for people sitting here. Although maybe when you're sitting there, you can't really see this back wall of the staircase. Maybe this is enough of a focal point, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We have lots of art we haven't hung yet, so
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
what would you recommend? Like, most
Yeah.
of our bigger pieces are up, but we do have some smaller art that
Yeah. I would think about grouping some smaller pieces going up the stairway. If
okay.
you don't have enough to fill up the stairway, then I wouldn't spread them out to fill up the stairway. Instead, I would think about finding a starting point on the wall. Maybe it's about halfway up,
Mhm.
where you start a gallery wall that you then build on, you build outwards on.
Okay.
If it's spread out, it's going to look like, oh, they're trying to take up space to fill up, the wall.
Mhm.
As opposed to, no, we're making a little vignette here of the pieces that are in a specific point on the wall, and then we spread out as over the years as you collect things.
And would you keep the frames similar colors, or would it like, our house is pretty eclectic, so
Yeah, I mean, that's really up to you. I think you can go for anything from nothing really matches, like purposefully, in
mhm,
which case it's almost like if you had 5 pieces, maybe at most 2 of them would match. The 3 would not match anything. They'd be very unique so that it's obvious that you're not trying to make everything match.
okay.
Or you can put everything in the same color frame, even though the frames themselves some may be ornate, some may be plain. And then so the frames themselves become the unifying element. You could choose things that have a theme that's meaningful to you to them. So it could be all landscapes, or it could be all black and white photos of family, or all still life oil paintings, or whatever.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to have a theme, but I think that sometimes having that running through our minds, especially as we're looking to add to something, kind of helps you when you're out and about or going to antique shops or going to art fairs, to thinking about how it would work together with the other things you already have.
Right.
And an even looser theme could be more like everything here is going to be eh, colorful, like all earthy tones or all bright tones. The level of mix is really up to you
Okay.
and what you're comfortable with, and makes you feel, excited to go upstairs.
Wonderful. And the chairs that would go behind the couch, would you
Uh-huh.
recommend the backs be the same height or
Not necessarily, but I like to mix things. So
okay.
nothing in my house matches, and that doesn't work for everyone.
Mhm.
When you match things, you're bringing a sense of order and structure and unity to a space. And so if you feel like the space needs that, like maybe you do, maybe you need some calm. And so the chairs are going to be the same height. Maybe they have similar patterns on them or similar colors, or maybe they're the exact same fabric. But if you want a more like collected over time look, then they do not have to be the same height. I think that and I don't even think it matters trying to keep them low, because this is such a nice big room here that it's not like your line of sight from here outside would be that hampered, even if your chair height was taller than the couch.
Right. Okay. What about paint color? I've kind of stuck to just like a neutral off-white,
Mhm.
but I haven't painted any of the walls like where the guitars are hanging or up the stairs or even in that whole foyer entryway. Would you stay with a similar light tone, do you think? Or
So the trick with these great big rooms is that once you start, it's hard. You have to know where you're stopping with the color, right?
Right.
So there has to be an obvious stopping point. I mean, you could paint just this area where the guitars are. I'm not a huge fan of focal walls or whatever they're called. I tend to think it makes a room look like you couldn't commit to a color, so you decided to do just one wall.
Right.
But in this case, this wall kind of does have a natural stop and starting point.
Mhm.
So you could experiment with the color here. I would pick the shade based on what the guitars look good against.
Okay.
So it could even be like this deep, moody blue or something.
Right.
But because the guitars are there, on the other hand, you don't need to paint the wall. I mean, it's already an interesting wall. So then if we look at some of the other parts of the room, that's when you go, okay, where does the paint start and stop? Do I paint all of this and the ceiling and then the opposite wall where the front door is the same color? I probably would. I probably would not break it up because I wouldn't want it to have a broken up look.
Right.
I mean, you do have these natural borders with your
Yeah.
wood frame, but for me, I think that would feel kind of choppy. But I think for someone else who loves color and likes color blocking,
Mhm.
it would be amazing to paint each area within the framework a different color or a different shade of the same color could
Right.
also work. And again, you've got this natural ending point here. You wouldn't even have to take the color up the stairs. So
Right.
I know it's a little bit scary to experiment with paint like that, especially when it requires a ladder for part of it. What you might do is get some rather large poster board, as large as you can
Mm.
find, paint a color on that, and
And then
stick it with painter's tape up on the wall to give you as big of a sense as you can of what it would feel like to have that whole area painted.
yeah, that's a really good suggestion because
Yeah.
especially if you're going darker and then you don't like
Yep.
it, have to go
Yep.
lighter, it's a lot more work to cover.
Right. I do have to say, though, I think because of the bones of the house are interesting in and of themselves, I would be comfortable living with the white for a long time and
Okay.
before I decided to play around. It doesn't look plain or unfinished in the white because of the architecture and the bones of the
Right.
house.
Okay. And then I have one more question. If you go back to like looking at the entryway,
Okay.
so you can't really see it, but just above the front door,
Okay.
there is a track light. And it's quite ugly, and we wanna
Okay.
replace it, and we're
Yep.
gonna be putting pot lights in that stretch of the ceiling, but we do
Okay.
have a fixture in the middle of that
Mm,
area. So I was just
okay.
wondering your thoughts, should we do maybe, like, some sort of, like, drop down chandelier piece, or should we just keep it open and airy?
What's the ceiling like in there?
It's vaulted.
It's vaulted like this right here.
Yeah.
Okay. I would do a chandelier kind of thing because you've got the height
Yeah.
and it could be I would base my choice on the feeling you wanted to give people when they first walk into the home.
Okay.
Their line of sight is going to go immediately across this to your office, right?
Right.
So they may not notice their surroundings as much. And if you wanted them to just linger for just a second while they're taking off their shoes or their coat or whatever, you might consider painting just the entryway.
Right.
or wallpapering just the entryway, a really interesting color, and then have that chandelier also be something that's interesting. And you could go with something that's woven, like a basket light. You could go with something that's more kind of industrial, uh, like a metal, like an interesting metal shade. It could have an exposed bulb or not an exposed bulb. It could be one bulb, it could be three that go across. They could even be hung in different heights since you've got
That vault.
vault, because all you have in the area, not all as in you need more, because it sounds like you don't need any more. You have this really pretty antique piece holding coats, and then you have this really nice window that letting a lot of light in. And the door itself, of course, I think is quite gorgeous.
Mhm.
So I guess you have to decide how much of a statement do you want that chandelier to be? Do you want it to be a big statement? Do you want it to contrast? Do you want it to be very modern to contrast with the
Right.
antique touch, you know?
I think I would want it more just for, like, the ambiance of the lighting.
Right. So in which case it does not have to be a bright bulb.
Mhm.
But like if it's a woven basket type thing,
Mhm.
it might have light that kind of comes through the holes. I've also seen porcelain lights that have holes in them that kind of spread the light out. You could hang a disco ball in there and it would, that would be really interesting.
That
Like,
would be really interesting. Yeah.
yeah, because it doesn't have to be a light source. I think it's more like jewelry for the room that sets the tone for the rest of the house.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Sandra. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Kayla. I loved talking with Kayla, and I hope there was something you got out of this episode for your own home. Again, if you'd like me to offer suggestions on a dilemma that you're dealing with, send me an email and photos to Zandra@slowstylehome.com. These sessions are not live, so don't worry about that. We record them ahead of time. So you'll get the suggestions and feedback right away as we're talking, but then the episode may not air for several months. Okay, let's wrap it up.